Soul Expressions. From the inner to the outer, the highest and lowest. The expression of the soul into reality.
And welcome everybody, another episode of Soul Expressions with JP and Andrew. JP, how you doing today?
Hello. I've had another rather nice day, spent an afternoon with a good friend and sorting out some music with him and doing more sorting out on my little house. So I have my music studio, which I'm broadcasting through right now. I've got it on a little gurney so I can push it from room to room when I need it. How wonderful that is. I know that's trivial, but that's a big day for me.
JP now has a mobile studio. That's incredible.
Well, it runs from room to room. Is
it automated yet? It's got a little motor on it. It's going to make it do it by itself.
Oh, that would be nice. Actually, I've got some remote control lights, which is really quite cool. So I got a little keypad, and I can switch on lights. I'm building up a set of LED lights in the room, very low voltage, very low power, very low light. But, just like a comfortable light level, not too bright for the night. The idea is that, say I get a power cut in the middle of winter, I can still walk around in the dark.
Yep.
And we get that sort of thing up here.
So are you going to name your cart R2D2? Are you going to allow the listeners to name it?
I have an amplifier for my guitar, which I built, which is a Marshall amplifier. I didn't build it, but I basically put two legs on it so that I could tip it back when I'm rehearsing, so that it points towards me. It's a sort of obvious thing, but it's got these two little legs, and when the two little legs have been swung back and it's laying there at an angle, it looks just like R2D2. So I've called that, because it's a Marshall, I've called it M2D2. So I'm kind of along that line.
So
meanwhile,
this time we will be taking chat room suggestion names for JP's new cart. And he will sticker it on there, and then he will show us in a post.
Yeah.
All right, JP, where did you want to take the show today? I know earlier you had said you had some galactic questions you wanted to clear up.
Yeah, well, it was basically I just a couple of hours ago I had nothing to do while I was doing this, so I just thought I'd play that first conversation that we had a few weeks ago, where you called in, you called me up a couple of hours before my scheduled show, so we did a sort of special show. That's available in the Ever Beyond archives, and I think it's got a label BEB, Before Ever Beyond, or Beyond Ever Beyond or something. It's good to play with these things. But anyway, when I was listening to it, and I thought, maybe we can expand and clarify this story that you started at the beginning. In fact, there were several threads on this. And there was one where we were starting, or where it was starting, was that there was a member of the Dark Cabal who had been given an order, an order as in an order from Amazon or eBay or something like that, had been given an order for certain kinds of DNA, and that this DNA, has been smuggled out by some use of technology, including being encapsulated in gold, this is where all the gold on the planet has been going. It's been creating like a detection shield, a detection-proof shield, so that they can't see, or people who are running this planet can't see that DNA is being ferreted away and stolen. So I'd like you to kind of pick that story apart and expand on it a little bit. Who are the players involved? Do we know anybody? Can we see its effects playing out in the mainstream?
First thing first, you understand there's an intergalactic mafia that's the highest power level dimensional beings that are trying to challenge the Prime Creator. And they've assembled here on Earth, and that is the Crime Family. That Crime Family essentially represents the Council of 12. The Council of 12 represents the 2,000 bloodlines. The 2,000 bloodlines represents Prime Creator's creation, which he's trying to return to a sacred neutral instead of a polarized balance. The Crime Families exist on many planetary and many other dimensions at the same time. Many of these multidimensional beings can live several thousand lifetimes at exactly the same time, even on the same planet. Well, this scenario that you just described, the DNA trade, we're drawing out this run of what's going on here. We're drawing it out to the point where they're trying to slow time down so much that the changes won't be understood. Well, during this slowing down process, the multidimensional beings have figured out ways to get DNA off of Earth. Now, they kind of realize that Earth as itself is lost, simply because they didn't fulfill the Prime Creator's main directive to stay in charge of the planet here, which was to have 1,200 breeding pairs at the time of the audit. You had asked about the audit before. The audit is the point when Prime Creator returns to look through the sun's memory to understand the polarity of the planet, and that will determine how many positive breeding pairs there are there to help repair the failing genetic structures of all the species that are co-invested in Earth's DNA. A very, very long time ago, there was a war here, and many species got drawn into it. But before there was a war, there were species that were investing DNA into this world because this world was a seed planet for another galaxy. It was a co-creation of many thousands of worlds and species that had learned to live tens of thousands of years. During that process, they used cloning technology and were lost their sex organs, their actual functions of them. So they weren't able to have kids anymore. But because they lived 30, 40, or 50,000 years, there was enough of their species for them to go and go and go until finally now they cannot fulfill their spiritual contracts. They can't meet their spirit brethren because they're stuck in this cycle of aging but not dying. So they need our DNA. And there are some that are so close to near the edge that they need constant influx of this DNA so that they can go through the changes. And then once they respawn sex organs, they've got to find somebody in their mating group that is still mateable or that has had similar DNA upgrades. And then they got to figure out how to do it, because it's been thousands of years before they did it. And they're not always successful, and sometimes they turn out to be very crappy parents. But they're trying, they're learning, and at this point, the DNA trade is there because it's doing good. In one sense, it's allowed to happen, and in the other sense, it's still this I will not give up mentality of the dark that's here. Again, they're going to fight to the very last end and to tear it out of their cold, dead hands. I don't believe they're just going to give it up at any point in time. See, Free Sovereign had a question here. Are any of the relation to the ones who stole the diamonds from the Swiss airplane this afternoon? No, that Swiss airplane diamond thing is about funding other projects that need to be funded. It's all about, the actual capital that the diamonds would get. Diamonds are generally work within a political sect and a religious sect, and those diamonds can be pawned off and be turned into drug money, which can be turned into cash. Usually that's when you see heists like that, somebody needs to raise cash very fast. JP, did you have any questions on what I was saying from before?
Ooh, right, okay. So you've got these beings, intergalactic mafia, let's call them, that are very long-lived, and presumably they live underground in our cities or something like that.
They have get the echo from you. No, they live in human bodies, and they'll reclone themselves a new human body every few hundred years, because they don't like to clone themselves too often here, so they like to live and then get a new body and live again and start new friendships. But their main purpose here is to dominate and control and to live out their existence with this physical body, as well as the physical bodies of many other existences at the same time. It would be like somebody, let's say, that's sitting in Davos, Switzerland, that is let's say a third in charge of the Illuminati, just giving a random rank. That type of multidimensional being might have 200 lives on this planet, like at the exact same time, and he's able to know them like they were twins of him. And
right.
they would know him.
So he's also like it's like having several chats open on Facebook at the same time and having, so he's involved in various different life scenarios.
Right. But they all have a theme.
Yeah. All have an end. Yeah. They're all are they aware that they are part of a multidimensional, mafiosi?
Yes.
And
not only are they aware of it, they're interactive with it.
Right. Okay. So it's a kind of, it's like a telepathic hive mind being.
Right.
Oh.
Exactly.
Well,
a telepathic hive mind being. And it can also extend its sentience into other beings that it's impressed its energy into. It would be like setting up a post office box in somebody's soul.
Right. So that's like a possession, isn't it?
In one sense, but in a second sense, the person allowed them to put it there. That post office box.
Right. So, yeah. And the people that have allowed this thing to happen to them, do they belong to
the dark side?
Yeah, but they probably they're probably members of organizations that are recognized to be who they are. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you're making very much sense. Example, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton would be examples of people that have post office boxes in them. Rockefeller would be an example of one that would be in charge of a hive mind.
Right. Okay. So you can't really kill these beings because there's,
the consciousness goes to the next one.
Yeah, just pop along. So, yeah, like that guy in Heroes. Did you ever see the series Heroes?
Yep.
There was a guy who would replicate himself. Mm-hmm. So, you think, and his consciousness would move, he would manifest the body and move his consciousness into that body. So you killed the one who first appeared, but he's already manifested another beingness. Yeah, wow, okay. So that's a bit of a difficult guy to get hold of. How do you deal with someone like that?
You gotta know they're like a combination of a hydra and a hive at the same time. So multiple energies can come at you from many different directions and many layers of reality at the same time when you deal with an entity like that. That means you have to have defenses to the maximum. You must be prepared for things to literally manifest in front of you in a method and a manner that could, define the multidimensional of this being. They're able to influence people over large areas because they have an institution below them that's funneling energy up the pyramid structure so that they can use that to dominate and control.
Yeah, so you mentioned this before, that the buildings are built as amplifiers for their wide control.
Amplifiers and storage.
Yeah, and in the same way that pyramids have this network of tunnels which are filled with water, so that acts as like an antenna system. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And many of the cities that were built on steam are the same concept as the pyramids, and they use the fast-moving steam to create energy vortexes for their specific purposes before they had electricity.
Oh, that's interesting. So, yeah, so the steam was conducting this energy. Right. Okay. Well, that takes us to another subject that maybe we'll cover later, and that's the black water. The conscious oil. I saw a program about this, a while ago, and it's been gradually seeping in. But we'll talk about that in a while because, I'm interested in this kind of cosmic soprano situation here. That we've got, multidimensional mafiosi who are replicated on a hive mind level that acts interactively. Okay. Is there a being who is dealing with that, and can we lend our energies as to become part of that multidimensional being who is battling them? I mean, is that the idea of what the Christian church is?
In one aspect, it is that the Christian church was taken over. I mean, there are still many aspects to it that are good. It's just a few rotten few, ruin it for the rest, but not always. It just like a mafioso can be in a city or in a state, it could be in a religion too. So it just extends itself into places of power, so it can be in a method of control. As for defending against them, educating yourself, opening yourself to ascension, connecting yourself to your spirit guides, your galactic brothers and sisters, learning a psychic talent. That is your greatest thing that you can do to help push these beings out, because it raises your vibration. And as we begin to raise our vibration as brothers and sisters, those beings will be forced off. They're already being forced off. This last asteroid that went off, I referred to it as the taxi. This is your last chance to get off. Here's your vehicle, which is asteroid, and this asteroid will be taken out of the solar system, and you'll have another planet to go and do something else on. You're just not doing it here anymore. A number of them got off, but there are still the ones that are still here. So those are the hardcore ones. Those are the ones that you have to tear out of their cold, dead hands, the grasps of control. Well, you challenge control with your mind. There are systems out there like the internet, and there are systems out there like courts. There are systems out there like news agencies that a letter with the proper energy attached to them can do a great deal of good for the greater good. And, I say, get out and write a letter. Write a letter to a station. Write an email to a station and give that energy to the universe. Tell the universe I'm ready to change. For those that believe they want to interact with those higher dimensional beings, I'm going to say, be aware. It's really easy to get caught up into something that's real and fake at the same time, because there's a level of trust that doesn't exist between your heart space and the spirit that you've communicated with. If you know what you're doing and you've been out there a long, long, long time and want to help, contact the Silver Legion. Contact the Andromedan brothers and sisters, the Pleiadians. At that point, you should have a powerful enough psychic ability to realize that they're just beyond the edge of our astral realm. They're so easy to contact now that, there are children that are already speaking their language and don't even know it.
Yeah. So we want to see the end of this thing. Now, I'm not entirely sure it's going to kind of be over and done with very quickly. Although it's, when I see very quickly, it's like it's not a matter of when, but there's things that need to happen in a particular order. It's like a chess game. You have to surround the different parts, and for instance, if somebody planted a bomb that is going to go off, you have to cover it with sandbags or something that will contain the energy. So presumably enough of these beings are being surrounded by that kind of how can we put this barrier energy?
They're being isolated.
Isolated, yes.
Yeah, that is happening. What's going on is after the DA-14 went by and that was your last chance taxi to get off, anything that was left here was the hardcore, the ones that I said you'll have to tear out of their cold dead hands. And what they're doing is those are being surrounded by high pressure energy fields, so that their energy is compressing out of a false fourth or fifth or sixth dimensional entity. So they're literally lowering the vibration of these multidimensional beings, and they're going to return them to a prime vibration of 1. So they're going to be literally deleted from existence and sent back to as a baby spirit.
So let's just break that down a bit. So at the moment they're multidimensional, or they're incarnational. Let's say
Right.
is that they're in like. So there's the spirit of David Rockefeller is walking around in like 500 people's beings, 500 people's consciousness, and they are part of that incarnation. They're like the Rockefeller Collective. That's a good way of putting it. Emanations, they call them in Tibetan circles. Is like the Buddha has emanations, which are actual physical incarnations of him herself. But there's a so what you're saying is that does that mean that these people, the members, let's say the members of the collective, as it were, the different clones and spin-offs of Rockefeller, that they're being gradually eliminated, or are they all being brought into a room given the choice? Do you want to go back to the Rockefeller Foundation, or do you want to be released and I'll
use the Rockefeller as an example. First thing first, actually a better description instead of clones. Literally their spirit was so big you couldn't fit it into one human body. So he was able to incarnate into 500 bodies and be born over a period of 12 years. And then as all the bodies were born and became to maturity, he was able to connect into the collective and then keep those people close and then open them up, because there's one master controller to that. And that master, what there is, they're the chess player, because there's several dozen of these multidimensional entities. There's not just one. There's the Rockefellers and others. So he has to play the chess game with all of his bodies and lifetimes, as well as the chess games of all of the other players in the game. Okay, and there are clones, and when he clones himself, it's for a specific purpose to help eliminate some type of karmic debt, so that clone will be the focus of negative karma, so it can get killed off, recycled, and he doesn't gain negative karma as he's going. How do I put it? The Rockefeller Collective could be, let's say there's 500, and there's actually more for him, because he came at around a time when there was a war going on, so he was able to get a lot more of himself spread out to a lot more people, because there was technology that was able to clear out the essence of a pregnant woman in the fetus and then allow that essence of him to come in. It's rather nasty, but that's what they do, and they've been practicing this at a witchcraft level for thousands of years. They just were able to use technology now instead of the energy from before, because much of their psychic abilities have gone away because they've inbred with themselves instead of outbreeding into the 2,000 bloodlines.
So is that why they breed humans as psychics?
Yes.
Yeah. That's again, that goes back to Babylon 5 when Lita Alexander is always asked by the reptile guy, we don't have psychics anymore, and we'd like to breed with you. How would you do it? I won't get into that. But anyway, so they've bred out they're not so psychic anymore. They're not, obviously they're de-evolving. So their only hope is to be kind of recycled kind of thing. Is that right?
It's tough to say if it's the only hope. I think a lot of them are so hell-bent on becoming the new creator that they're missing the point of living. They're just so OCD compulsive at that high level of entity that they have several hundred entities below them that are following the OCD of domination and control, because they believe they are the new spirit of creation for all of the universes.
Right, yeah. Let's talk about that. let's talk about what they believe of themselves. That's a very good point. Would you like to,
All right, yeah, I'll
lay that out for our, paint the picture of how these beings view themselves and view us in relation to themselves, and maybe also, Andrew, just lay it all out. Go on.
Okay. Well, they themselves, about 56 million years ago, this relates to the fall of Lucifer in that it has some semblance in the story. But I'm gonna paint it as a broad stroke. What there were 36 entities that were on the Prime Creator's basically, top 36 list. Those are the people that it would go to use to make new galaxies, to make new star systems, so that in the deep future, when Prime Creator was ready to bring billions of life forms into this reality, that there would be a network set up for it. Well, a number of these beings were given a purpose to create a seed planet, and so they would go and seed several dozen galaxies. One of those seed planets was Earth, and Earth had a number of these 36 entities, about 8 of them that were a part of it, and as they began to go and put their seed planet together, which was literally Earth, which was a 7th dimensional planet at that point, there was an invasion from another universe, which was the Draco Reptilians, and they brought in a concept to these beings that were under Prime Creator's sacred neutral control of war. And they did not know how to respond to it, so they instantly polarized, and they left Prime Creator's position because they thought this war concept that was brought to them was going to make them the new Prime Creator. That's ultimately the way they see themselves. That this invasion that was brought on by Prime Creator was their chance to become the new Prime Creator, because it was showing them multi-universes instead of just the multi-dimensional galaxies they were functioning in now. They were realizing that there were many, many more layers to all the galaxies that were being built. So Earth was greatly wounded and teleported into another part of the galaxy, in which we'll just say the forces of the good guys began to protect her and nurture it back. At that point, the 36 we'll say neutral guys that were turned out to be the multidimensional mafia that you have now, 24 of them pretty much polarized into war species and bonded with the Draco Reptilians and entered their universe and their galaxy and learned the ways of war in which the Draco Reptilians used domination and control for their functions. The Draco Reptilians had technology that allowed these beings to become very highly intelligent on a grander scale than they ever did before. They had a combination of science and spirituality behind them, as well as the hive mind of several dozen planets to be able to project a concept of war into another galaxy, which would ultimately attack the ascended masters of various planets. The Draco Reptilians knew early on that the technology-wise, they would be able to get to an area, but they would never be able to defeat them technology-wise. But what they could defeat them is spiritually, and then breed into their species and take them over. So that was the ultimate concept. These high-energy, multidimensional beings became the overlords of this many million year conceptual war of a spiritual war of invading from one universe to another. At that point, they created what's called the Archon Band. So these multidimensional beings the mafia beings, incarnated bodies into reptilian souls and used Earth as a method of rapid raising the spirituality of those Draco Reptilians to create the Archon species. Now they created several other Earths that didn't really work the same way, but they were still able to breed entities that could reach a low vibration of 4th dimension and be the spiritual invasion force that they needed to wrench Earth out of the good guys' hands. So this comes to the Lemurian time. So at the point in Lemurian times, the good guys were in control of Earth, firmly in control, and this Earth had, at this point, dropped from a 7th dimensional entity planet to a 6th dimensional. It had lost a lot, but various creatures and various species from around the universe and the multiverse had come to Earth and began to repair it, spiritually and physically, and At that point, there were several species of Earth that lived on Earth, not only Earth's first species, so there were several. So that was the first melding of the DNA of species. And then the Draco-Reptilians figured out, with the help of the multidimensional mafias, how to get a spirit on Earth and into the incarnation patterns without the good guys noticing it. So there's a period of 100,000 years where alien spirits co-infested the Earth Hive spiritual network and were able to create a very underground, unseen network of influence inside the planetary structure. They began to have an outright war, and at that point there was a big trigger of negative energy from these beings that were in the center of the Earth, which basically caused Earth and the good guys to lose. They needed to retreat because they were risking the lives of many ascended masters. And at that point, they realized that if they did that, they had lost the big war because it was a trap. Well, the goal was they wanted them to invest all these ascended masters there so that these multidimensional beings would be able to pop in and use those ascended masters as battery energies to suck off their karma so they could go into the galaxy and do tremendous negative stuff to anyone else because they believed they were balancing life force by consuming life force. And that's what gave them the right to be the new creator. That's pretty much their view.
Right. Okay. Wow. That's, that's a really good potted kind of look at it. I wanna kind of expand it that a bit, if you can, on, right, because right at the beginning, and I had this question, which was, okay, so we have Prime Creator, and then Prime Creator creates our universe, but then these reptilians, or who manifest as reptilians, these energies, came from another universe where there was war.
Right.
So did Prime Creator create that one?
Yes, he did. Everything did.
Uh-huh.
Each galaxy has a representation of Prime Creator because each galaxy spawned from a single spark of Prime Creator. So if you think about, I described those multidimensional beings that having 500 bodies or 700. Imagine something having 27 trillion bodies, and that would be the concept of Prime Creator here. The total potential of all spiritual life forms in the entire galaxy. So there's a Prime Creator in every galaxy and in every universe.
Right, which is linked. why they say that we've all got a spark of God. Because it's like, God might be the tree, and then you get branches, and then you get smaller branches, and you get twigs, and then you get leaves. And you could say that we're like the leaves, being part of God, but not being. So you know, you look at a leaf, and although you can identify a tree by the leaf is not the tree.
Right.
So yes, we're part of God, but we're not God ourselves. So so are these like, branches, sawn off branches that are trying to kind of seed themselves into becoming their own tree? Can you look at the, yeah?
Yes. There's another point of view that said Prime Creator basically cut the branch and put it in an area for it to see if it would survive. So that's another perspective that they have. That is another creature and creation of Prime Creator. You can see it from many perspectives, but we're at the point where they were given the choice to return to the sacred neutral point of view and release polarity or return to a zero vibration and the spirit would start over. They're choosing the zero vibration because they believe themselves to be the creators so much that they've literally some of these multidimensional mafia beings could have been living in, I don't know, 2 or 3 million bodies. That they're that big of an energetic entity. 2 or 3 million bodies. But they've chose to be in 5 or 6,000 or 5 or 600 on one planet. They're not on other planets. There are other multidimensional beings that are invested in this war, but are not a part of the actual hardcore few that are left. There's a mafia that's out there, but they've already agreed to accept some of the sacred neutral perspective and to eliminate polarity because they want the DNA so their species can survive too, and then may further their concept once they've repaired their DNA.
So they've made a deal, a sort of plea bargain.
Yep.
And the plea bargain is, if we let go, you'll give us some of your stuff.
Stuff, time, and the opportunity to co-create out of it. It doesn't mean they have to take it. They have their free will to stay into their own form of domination and control, but it essentially means some of their sect will leave. And if some of their sect leaves, some of these multidimensional beings may have incarnations. They'll have several dozen incarnations, and one of them may be a major part of the hive mind, a co-creative part, and all of a sudden the hive mind is split, and it's got to decide how much level of investment it needs in all of its creations.
And what would that mean?
Think of it
How would that play out?
Think of an ant colony, and that ant colony is representative of all of the physical bodies that it's incarnated. That ant colony spawns a queen, and that queen is forced out of the nest, and it may bring a few ants with it in some scenarios, and then start a new hive. But that second hive is still linked to the first hive. So he's just divided his total energy. Instead of having it all by a central single entity that controls the chessboard, which is the ever-evolving, co-creating, multidimensional entity that's here on, it's trying to create domination and control.
All right. Let's go back to that branch of the tree.
Okay.
Okay, so say, we'll stretch this analogies. Say that there was a tree, which we can call God, who is pushing out into the universe, and the tree gets a disease, or it's traumatized, or it cracks in the cold, and some kind of degradation starts going on, and it starts to rot. And it knows that if the tree, if the rot goes all the way into it, it would kill the tree, or it certainly would transform the tree. And so before that could happen, it allowed one of the branches to be cut off, or it cut it off and then didn't let it die.
Right. In what you're describing, it actually transplanted it to another planet. So it became a planetary mind. Example, Saturn is a classic example of one of those entities that had a very difficult time of the rot, and it was given a gaseous planet that was in the rawness of creation and the wildness, so it can experience all that wildness and express something to this solar system about healing and creating and co-creating and the type of spiritual entities that it influences the astrological realm with.
Good old Saturn, eh? Yeah, lovely.
And Mars. And all of them have an influence here.
Yeah, well, they're like lifting heavy weights.
Right.
It will hurt you or it will get you stronger. So interesting. Wow. Okay. So basically, that's the original problem. Or maybe what was the original problem? What was the thing that did the rot get there in the first place? What was that original trauma? Can you expand with that?
There's a little bit of a hazy area, but I say hazy because nobody really knows what caused it, but there's a lot of really good guesses. And when the Prime Creator realized that one universe could invade another universe, it had to know if free will was going to let it happen, and it told one universe to do it and didn't tell the other universe that it was coming, and allowed free will to evolve. And something happened where Prime Creator had to come in and begin cutting it up, that its creation, because he realized he had made a mistake.
So, the original mistake was to not tell. It was like somebody doing a prank on somebody and it goes badly wrong, yeah?
I think it was in an experiment that it needed to be done at that time because the type of entities were so greatly different. Greatly different. And things came out of it where Prime Creator realized it had invested into some of these planetary bodies that were way too powerful and way too influential on the galactic bodies, and that these things learned how to get out of the little fence that it had created through the fact that it could incarnate into other planets on a very small, tiny level. They learned how to use the incarnation rules to their advantage, and the invading side had learned that, but there were a number of very powerful entities that had learned it here but didn't do anything with it. And when the two systems collided, it set off the firestorm of domination and control.
So, okay, so the and yeah, that was another interesting part of the story that you were telling at the beginning, was the infiltration process and the fact that we're now using that, and that's what we call starseeds.
Correct. I also call it fifth column souls. I've said that in other shows.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah. So so does that mean that people from this galaxy are going to have to occupy bodies in the reptilian galaxy where there's war?
Like the multi-dimensional? Is that who you're asking about?
Well, sorry, I'm just thinking about healing the universe, healing God himself.
Okay. There is a way. And that's letting Earth go through its change, so that it balances karma between the two universes and the two galaxies that confronted each other, and we're the healing experience for both of those. We will be teachers because of the species that we are and the history we've done for the last 56 billion years.
Right. That's a sod of a long time, as we say. Yeah, Brett. So, okay, so this is the thing that has been going on, and so can you expand further on how this process is going to work out, or the process by which the process works out, rather than any details, so that they who have ears to hear can hear. Yeah.
You've heard me describe that we're going to begin to connect in dream times. Two dream times are going to become one. And then there'll be an event. And that event will unify our dream time and make us a single collective. We'll realize that everybody on this planet is a multidimensional being that's come here from various parts of various universes to experience the healing here, because we're all, in effect, weaving the strands of galactic and inter-universal healing by being here as fully present beings with all of our past, present, and future lives here to interact with the very fabric, essence, and nature of Prime Creator's ever-expanding knowledge and wisdom about life. And so being here at the time of the event means that you were chosen to be here as a healer. So the next generation that takes this planet will have to know all of its history in a transparent way, from Hollow Earth to Surface Earth to intergalactic, no relations to brothers and sisters we have there. That's what we pass on to the next generation. And we'll know that our next generation, they will live several hundred years, and the generation after that will live several thousand years. Many of us after the event will suddenly realize that 100-year lifespan will be very easy for us to do if we simply follow the natural way of the new living and return to working the land in a method and a manner that allows your spirit to grow. We will divest from cities, but not all of us. Cities are still going to be a vital part of our collective cultural conscious as well as our, Dreamtime conscious. We'll begin to manifest things from our dreams that allow our culture to reinvest back into our dream space. Like prayer grounds. So places where people can go to connect deeply to the earth and be connected to the ley lines. That'll take some time to work the kinks out, but as people begin to get their homing beacons turned on, many of the star seeds are going to realize that they have messages here that remind them of their home planet. And many of them are going to begin to yearn to be back there. And many of them will begin to return there in dream time. And when they do, they will connect to the dream times of these other planetary consciousnesses that will then send dreamtime energy back to Earth's dreamtime world. And we will expand and re-enter the collective of the galaxy that we are in now, the Milky Way. And that'll be the biggest healing for Earth when she's allowed back into the dream collective and not quarantined.
So the dream time. This is right at the beginning of what you were talking about, the collective dream idea came up. Now, this is something I heard on one of Cliff High's reports, that there'll be a day when everybody shares a dream. And that will really change things.
Yes.
I hope I don't miss it.
You won't.
I won't. It'll be striking, will it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone will.
And are there kind of pre-waves of this dream? Are people seeing this dream already?
Yes, actually. DA-12 and the meteors that came through were a trigger for a whole new set of fifth column souls to wake up. Their homing beacons were turned on. Their mission is now being clearly identified to them, and they now have free will to step into their power or go back to sleep.
Right. So it's the meteors are in the dream. David Wilcock has published the fact that he's had dreams of meteor showers and meteor storms. And it feels and sounds kind of familiar to me, so I've probably experienced it. I always felt my dreams had a kind of, it's like Blade Runner. In Blade Runner, it's always raining. it's always like gloomy, rainy kind of thing. It's a bit like London was like that in the 1960s when I grew up as well. So that's the kind of atmosphere of my dreams. And I have to say I much prefer the weather here. It's got great skies and there's beautiful clouds. And anyway, meanwhile, so, cause I feel that I'm kind of, setting a precedent. I want to live the way of the future. I don't want to live the way of the past. And so I'm wanting to become more kind of agrarian, but still technologically based. I still want to have my internet so I can talk to all the rest of my collective consciousness and play music to people and things. So there is room. There will be internet in the future.
Yeah. It'll just, you won't use it in the same manner. Internet radio like this will be a cottage industry in which people will take tours between, because there'll be one group in Africa that has this vibration, another group in China that has that vibration, and the internet will be their method to plan, pre-interact, and then interact, because you'll meet online, you'll meet through voice, you'll meet through type, you'll communicate, and then you'll instantly teleport there, and your society and culture are going to change and adapt to that, because there won't be this drive time between there, unless you want that drive time. So you'll still be in a change of vibration where many people won't be ready to teleport. They'll have to use an actual object, even if that object can instantly move. Their brains won't be ready for teleportation.
Yeah, and sometimes it's nice to take the scenic route. Maybe visit a few places.
Exactly.
But that's an interesting idea. It's very much like the telephone before the visit thing, but on a more higher dimension, because you see people and you talk to them and you understand them. Yeah, it'd be well, I was just going to say, being able to feel somebody over the internet, that takes us into odd position. So maybe, yeah, and we'll have teleportation, as you say. So that might be good. And yes, so it's probably that you'd use the internet as a homing device.
Right. People will use it to find similar people.
Yeah.
They'll figure out ways to make connections. Example, Linda Rea, she posted a Starseed video, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And I've been communicating with her on and off, not as much as I should, I've been so busy, but she put out a Starseed video that a lot of people connected to. Well, she's just doing a regular Skype telephone interview and put it on YouTube, and now got 3,000 friends in a matter of a few weeks. That's how fast it's going to spread. And she's getting good hits on her views now because she wanted to step up and tell her story. And she's from Sweden, and I was able to connect her here from Cleveland, Ohio, and to get her to begin practicing her English a little more so she could come on Wolf Spirit Radio and then Freedom Slips on my other show. That's how easy it's going to be. It's just a matter of taking the methods of this control state away, so that they're not being governed anymore in a method that reduces our potential.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think that I'm creating little baby steps for people to take, and then moving on up, and yeah, I think it's great. It's lovely to be able to enable people.
Exactly. Just want to let everyone know that we're going to be planning a trip to Peru to go do ayahuasca. It'll be in June or July. I'm sorry, May or June. I'm still working on the early details and trying to get the price as low as possible, as well as all the little side things that have to be done, like having a fixer and a guide to get you to deep in the jungle and or the mountain, because I have a choice to go to a mountain or a jungle. And so everybody keep your ears posted if you think you want to do an ayahuasca tour.
Or you could come to Glastonbury. I might do that. I have a very different...
Maybe you could make a contingent of people from England that want to go. I'm sure the prices would go down if you get more people involved.
Yeah. It'd probably involve a lot of walking, wouldn't it?
No. You get on an airplane, you get off an airplane, you get on a bus, you get off of a bus, and you're at a village in one scenario, or you're at a mountain retreat in another one. The village has a mother, a father, and 10 shamans that do the ayahuasca trips for people that come there. And so you have people that watch over you. You do 5 separate ayahuasca ceremonies over 9 days. And ayahuasca is about purging the spiritual energy as well as the physical energy. Most times when you consume your ayahuasca, once you peak, you begin to throw up. The throwing up lasts for about 15, 20 minutes, and then most people have 5 or 8 or 10 minutes of dry heaves, and then you get something to drink, and then you begin to peak again. And that peak is when your crown chakra and your root chakra line up, and your left eye and your right eye align with your third eye, and you begin to see colors. And those colors come into a spiral wave that connects to your third eye, and that third eye reminds you that you're in a jungle or on a mountain, and you're part of that sacred energy that is a collective of Earth. And it reminds you that there's a fiction in which humans are co-creating in and not repaying Earth Mother. And it gives you an opportunity to understand that there's many layers within that. And the more you choose to go forward, the more you choose to experience. And there'll be enough shamans in the group to remind people to stay balanced and grounded, or give you a drum or a rattle, or sit you by the fire, and so you talk. And then you begin to go through your experience, which could be 5 or 6 or 7 hours long, and then you're done, and you go and eat, and you sleep, and then you wait, and you do one the next day, until you've done it 5 times. And you purged out all of the negative energy, and you're able to see through all of your third eye with all of your power. And then when the ritual is over, you get to return home with a completely clean spirit, completely clean body.
Reformat the hard drive, new installation, install an operating system, I see.
Exactly. And a wax job.
And a wax job, yeah. I have a previous guest and a very dear friend of mine, who does this thing in Glastonbury. She brings the people over, and, I mean, it sounds lovely. I don't see myself as traveling very much this year, but, we'll see. You never know.
See, you never know. It could take off.
Yeah.
So the more people you get to go in a single jump, the cheaper it is for everyone. So it's just a matter of, working out all the details of what numbers mean what. So. Have you ever done anything like that? I mean, have you done any mushrooms in your lifetime?
I did a sweat lodge, about 10 years ago, I think. 8 to 10 years ago. I mean, I've been and I've also been to festivals and done LSD and things like that. And, you can go, it can be hell as well as very bizarre and trippy and happy.
That's why you have people to take care of you. That's what the shamans do.
Exactly.
What's 58 to the hour? Why don't we take our break so Dave can feel good about himself? He can play our music.
Dave?
Dave's not here.
What you want?
Dave, wake up. He sounded very sleepy when we started. He's probably face down on the keyboard going zzz.
What you want?
Space bar, just the space character going across the screen.
Everybody think Dave out loud.
What you
Or he's talking
want?
with his mic off now. Oh, Dave, where are you? We're ready for our break.
Can you not hear me?
So,
We're gonna label that the Oh Dave break song.
yeah, the Dave break song. Really we want Dave to take a break, but maybe we could just go on. I was thinking let's just do it. Are you okay with it?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Let's go. Ask
Let's
away.
go. So, meanwhile, so we got God in his universe expanding into something that is that then that does something as an experiment.
I see Dave is ready for a break. Why don't we take a break? And he says something's going on with his mic.
Right. You can't hear me, and I'm ready for a break. Okay. Let's do the break. Tell us when the break is starting.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone.
On you go, Andrew. Hey, no, after you.
We're in tune.
No, after you. I insist. After you. I mean. How dare you? How dare you dare me? How dare you?
How dare you dare me?
I don't mind that one. It's just there's this kind of really awful screaming after that little bit on the Rev Radio.
I can't take it anymore. I know.
Yeah, I know. It's. I find it a little bit distressing, to be honest. But anyway, meanwhile, back at the creation of the galaxy. So we have these two branches of consciousness. The big mistake was I did this last week, and isn't that the whole issue with men and women? Men do things, don't tell the woman, and then the woman finds out, and you say, you did what, kind of thing. Doesn't that happen all the time?
Yes, it does, all the time. It happens all the time, and it happens at many different scales, on a universal scale and on a single human level scale.
And so it's like, and the reason that happens is that one wants to protect the woman from feeling the terrible things.
Yes, protection is one thing, but protection also leads down to the doorway of the ego to slip in. Protection can be overbearing at one point, or so overbearing that it's smothering. And that's no longer being in a co-creative manner, that's being in a dominant manner. And a lot of Earth was set up to be part of the dominant and feminine. But if you really look at nature, there's big varieties, but a big percentage of nature sticks with a single mate for a reason, because that's the way their DNA is set up for. And their DNA relates to their soul contracts that they have, their spirit groups that they have. It's the blueprint of how you function in this world. And once you understand your blueprint, and you understand that there are people trying to control your blueprint, you can rewrite it. We're at that stage where we can rewrite our blueprints and rewire our bodies and our spirits.
So, rewiring the blueprint, reprogramming the operating system. But first, we need to make the operating system open source, and I think that's what the function of us here in this space is doing. In that we're giving people this is the program that's been running. This is the language that the thing has been running in, and this is how you rewrite it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all that way back, how do we now rewrite this? Where do we go? Where's the manual? Where's the reference manual? I mean, a lot of people say, the Bible's my reference manual, but, there's got to be something a little more technical.
When you accepted free will, you got no manual. And that was in the contract.
All right, so this is where you write your own manual, is it?
Yep. It's where you write your own manual.
Yeah, I suppose this is why, because back in the old days, it wasn't easy to write stuff. Scraping bits of stone with bits of dead body or dead, ground up insects and things like that. It was pretty hard. Nobody had an iPad that you could, just move your finger across and it would make words. So what was written down became sacred because, this is part of what the world has been doing. Here's a story about how people lived in these days, and they all become scripture, and they all really are the Word of God. And there is a lot of, I think one of the problems of religion is the whole idea that, there's only one way. And, even the Christianity divides and divides and divides into smaller and smaller sects that have someone's idea of what it really should be. And everybody seems to have a different idea. Or everybody gives themselves a different name, and probably realize that it's all the same idea. Because at the moment, amazingly, many people on this planet are driven by that idea. The idea that you can have an ultimate authority who's just some bloke who's written his journal, written his diary, and people form a religion around it.
That's right. Dianetics, L. Ron Hubbard, Scientology, perfect example.
Oh my God, indeed. Yeah, a satanic sci-fi writer. Yeah, what a great religion to follow. They're quite a lot of trouble, aren't they? I've seen some of their work, like the work that they do, the sort of training that they undergo, and they're trained to take all the abuse that you can possibly throw at them. They're trained to remain unflinchingly cool, which
sounds like brainwashing to me.
Sounds like brainwashing to me. Yeah, it's
unresponsive in somebody's dominant manner. That's brainwashing right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us. Right. No, I was going to say tell us about the Scientologists, but how much truth is the Zeno story? I mean, does it have any truth at all?
That's a tough one. More than likely, L. Ron Hubbard channeled an extra-dimensional entity, or was an extra-dimensional entity himself that began to go through the awakening process. So what is true and what is his ego probably died with him. But either way, it left an impression, and somebody co-created enough with it afterward to make it mass media. For what reason? He's got a volume of work out there, and that's a multidimensional being that put out a body of work that affected enough people in a method and a manner that it went beyond his physical death. So he's still out there co-creating and controlling, even though he's not here. Is much of his essence been tied up into the words of the book. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. So his consciousness has infused its way into the organization. Yeah.
Correct.
So we're talking about another multidimensional mafioso who's moving. Because again, I was talking, that. Okay, so they become a collective consciousness, and become the L. Ron Hubbard collective, as a kind of amorphous, entity that has power and control, because they've weaseled their way into all sorts of places, haven't they?
Yes, because they've gained power at some point in their history that gave them influence over people to bring up-and-coming actors into them. So they were very much a media-based religion.
L. Ron Hoover of the First Church of Appliantology. This is interesting. So we've got these multidimensional beings, or multi-incarnational beings, multi-emanational beings, who are interacting, and so it's a bit. So we look at. I mean, you could almost look at Scientology as like the Borg. Because they're all perfect, they're all efficient, and they're very tidy and clean, and very good at what they do. Except they don't have very much well, have they lost creativity? Because that's the thing they say, this is the thing about being human, we're creative, we can come up with creative solutions. Do the Scientologists lose their creativity? Is it enhanced? What happens to it?
It's invested in places that they're not like to their spiritual contracts. They're going against the grain of their incarnation rules. They're learning something. Yes, it's part of the free will, but it's that tacit consent because of the ignorance behind the true story. If you don't know what's really behind it, you give to it freely, and then you find out later it's not exactly the most friendly energy out there, you're going to feel betrayed. So you got to make it to the point where they blissfully release much of this energy to you through whatever it is that you're creating, like whatever church it be.
So we're going to have, basically there's going to be a whole bunch of broken Scientologists after the event, who are suffering crisis of faith.
In many religions. Let's just say
that's true.
Let's say the Buddhist, for example. You wouldn't think there would be people there, but even in that religion, it'll go through its own reformation because there are people that are very hardcore and only believe in one type of way of practice. And that's fine that they go through a reformation. Many churches need to go through a reformation. Here's a classic example. The Catholic Church, just let down its Pope. Well, what does that reformation within it mean? It has to take care of its outward problems. Child sex abuse is really a big thing. They could have stepped in front of this 15 years ago or 30 years ago, but now they're just dragging it out and being unsmart about it.
So, we're seeing this reformation of religion. Again, this is something that I've been talking about for quite a period of time, is the movement of the sixth ray of belief to the seventh ray of knowledge. And yes, religion will, basically, I imagine that the structures will remain. Churches are great buildings. They're tuned and they, you can make great music in them and things like that. But, it may not be, denominational anymore because we'll all know the truth. So we don't need to believe in any one secular idea, of how to behave. We'll just know, the truth. And the truth will lead you to the appropriate way of behaving in any situation. So, yeah, it'll be like there'll be buildings, church buildings where people can gather and have coffee mornings, but they won't have any preachers anymore. Maybe people meditate together there.
But people will create with the spaces what the new way is. Those old places of worship will become new places of worship in their own time. Some will fall away, some won't. I heard you say before, I forgot what I was going to say. What were you saying before about letting go and crap? Anyways,
yeah.
The churches will have to go through their own reformation. And, not only the American churches, but the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church, and as well as government itself. Government will have to let go of its control. And when the church and the government let control, what does that world look like for us? We're truthers here, we know it. We know what goes on. The corporations, the government, the churches, all of them give up. What does that really look like for us?
Well, I'd certainly feel a sense of relief. That would be my first feeling. And I like to think that I'm considering these options and looking at the way that we could move on from all that and move on to something that is so much more grounded in real reality. I think part of our conversation is about this. What is the real reality? How do we fit in to this whole thing? And, people see the world often as a very kind of random thing. And then religious people say, well, you can see the order of the universe, so therefore it must have a God, and therefore that God must have a Jesus or a Muhammad or a Moses. And we have to worship those beings. No, you just have to recognize that the universe has got a fractal form. Once we understand what fractals mean, you can see the as above, so below, which is the eternal truth, that the pattern of nature is the pattern of God. There's nothing different. They are the same. And that everything is self-similar. So if you've got a macro situation, there's a reflection in the micro situation, and that one can influence the other in the same way that if I pluck this high string here, then the low string here has vibrated. So it's a matter of resonance, and you see the self-similarity of things. And once you start seeing the self-similarity of everything, you then see the truth that God and nature are the same thing. And it's not like someone who's going to come and punish you, that it's just a process. And by following the idea that you've got a process rather than a malevolent or benevolent or judgmental consciousness behind it, life becomes a lot more, the first word that comes into my mind is juicy, succulent, that it becomes a pleasant thing to be here. How's that?
It's really good. It's really, really good. I really hope people go back on the YouTube or the archive of this and listen to some of JP's words. He's really connected tonight. Earlier in the show, I saw somebody in the chat that was laying out the truth. Well, this is the time for everybody to stand up in their truth. If what I'm saying resonates with you, it's because the times are a-changing. Times are a-changing.
Hi. You're not going to get me to sing that Bob Dylan song. Sorry.
Not even a little guitar riff?
Come gather, young people, wherever you are. Anyway, actually, I haven't got the lyrics right. I could dig. You can dig it. This is the amazing thing about having computers and laptops and iPads and iPods and things. That if you don't know anything, it only takes like about 20 seconds before you can find something out about something. A word comes into your head, Thermidor. And and it takes 5 seconds to type it into Google and find out a Thermidor is that's see what happens if you type Thermidor into. So we have there's Thermidor in the chat room, but anyway, I think I believe it's a form of food.
Actually, Thermidor, that's my brother Mike. He lives in Waialuku, Hawaii, and Thermidor is a type of pest control chemical that kills bugs.
Bug juice.
Because he works for Terminex in Hawaii. He's been doing it for 8 or 9 years now.
Excellent. But there is a Thermidor, which is it's a sauce. It goes with lobster. And it was mentioned in the Spam song of Monty Python.
Spam.
Yeah. 'Cause it goes, you can have lobster thermidor au crevette with a Mornay sauce served in the Provençal manner with a fried egg on top of spam.
That's a good one.
I used to do that when I was a kid. You know, we used to watch Monty Python one night, and the next day everybody was reproducing exactly the sketches that they had. That we only saw it once, and we learned, we retained it. It was just amazing how he'd do that.
We did the same thing here.
It's a French dish consisting of a creamy mixture of cooked lobster meat, egg yolks, and cognac or brandy, stuffed into a lobster shell, with a fried egg on top of spam, of course.
Lobster stuff on spam.
But anyway, there's a Thermidorian reaction, which was a revolt in the French Revolution against the excesses of the Reign of Terror. Yeah, let's just have a quick look at that. That's quite interesting, eh? It was triggered by a vote of the National Convention to execute Maximilien Robespierre, Louis-Antoine de Saint-Just, and several other leading members of the Terror. This ended the most radical phase of the French Revolution. So, that's interesting.
You brought something up. You used a trigger word, the group known as the Tarot. Well, there were a group of sorcerers that were mid-level multidimensional beings at the time that were herding DNA types and using it on a much more open trade system for DNA, because Earth was under a very different set of rules then. They were kicked out because they were stealing too many people out of villages.
Right. So, this is something that has gone on for a long, long time. Tell us a little bit about how the gold is used, Andrew. Can you, I mean, are they made into gold attaché cases or gold flight cases, that contain, what's the deal? Do you get a little heart-shaped gold container or can you describe the containers?
Basically, they take the object, the DNA, the organ, whatever it is, and then they spray on a mist of gold. It's monatomic gold that has a signature alignment to it. And once it's sprayed on, it seals it in, and that's a protectant layer above it. And when it gets to the other side, as you know, gold's got a low melting temperature comparatively, and there's a wavelength of light that's rapidly shot onto it, and the gold is basically unmanifests itself off of the object, and it's ready to be traded.
Wow. Now, wouldn't that be a handy packaging method?
Oh, exactly. It protects it from radiation, keeps it in the environment that you want. It's electromagnetically, proper. You know the properties of gold.
Yeah, so, I mean, basically, instead of plastic bags, we could have this gold stuff, and every house would have a deatomizer that would, have this stuff preserved. So you could have, well, yeah, okay,
exactly.
Maybe, not fresh meat, but, or maybe, yeah, I mean, if the meat, creatures are happy to still remain in service and give their lives and their bodies to feed others, become part of the food chain and evolve through that, then why not? Why do we have to, do we have to give up eating meat?
No. It'll come through in a different form. It won't come from an animal anymore. It'll be, made from molecules ground up.
Oh, yeah.
I see some eagle flower once. Hold on. I see eagle flower once in a while. Can't they repurpose the gold? Once you're using it to smuggle out, you don't want to bring it back in. You're sending stuff out. That's why. So it is repurposed over there. It just isn't sent back here. The only thing that they send back here is information on technology or actual pieces of technology completed, because that's how they interact. Go ahead, JP.
So that's the trade. It's it's like drugs for weapons, or it's a barter. You know,
Right.
so there's a kind of interdimensional barter because obviously money. There is no central money system in the galaxy, or is there, or in the universe?
There's a barter system and there's an exchange currency that is just used for those that are travelers. And it's like a traveler's currency.
That sounds cool. Where can I get some?
When you get traveler status.
Wow, that would be nice. Yeah. Galactic Center. My mind drifts to the center of the galaxy. So is there like is there a bar at the Galactic Center? Is there, a place where people gather? Is that like the ultimate aim of the souls, that we return to the center? Or is that where it all starts coming out from?
It's both. You're in and out of there. As I said earlier in the show, each galaxy has its prime creator, and that's the central sun of its galaxy. And then each central sun of each galaxy is part of the hive mind of another prime creator. And then all of the galaxies combine into the hive mind of another creator. And then all of the universes combine into the hive mind of another prime creator. So we're on a micro to macro scale, many levels above us and below us. So the prime creator's central sun is the representative of the prime creator of this galaxy, as well as the prime creator of all of the multiverses.
And they operate in the same way that there's a central one and the rest are emanations.
Yep, emanations.
And so, how can I tell if I'm an emanation or if I'm the original? Is it possible to know if you're an original or a photocopy?
In the Native American religion, that would be called the Great Mystery. The Great Mystery is ever unfolding, and one can never understand the Great Mystery because it only exists in the present. And the present allows you to create and co-create with the infinite and finite sides of you to explore and expand creation itself. So from there you determine what your level of creation and co-creation is with your free will.
Right. Free will. Always back to free will.
Yep.
And
free will was a choice to accept it. Many beings didn't understand choice when it was given to them. It took them many evolutions to figure out what it really meant. Free will wasn't dangled in front of spirits, just like a carrot and a stick. It was definitely made people really, really think about it because it was a new concept.
And I think part of the distortion of the teachings that we've been given is that there are only two choices in every situation. It's like
Correct.
Even the word a dilemma means it's a two-horned goat. And it'll either turn its head to the left or the right, but you still get stabbed by the thing. But that there are other ways, and because we've been talking about this whole positive, negative, neutral thing. This is an interesting thing. In America, right? You've got plugs and you've got two pins on the plug. You have live and neutral. In Britain, we have live, earth, and neutral. And,
actually, most of America switched over to three-prong plugs now, though there are devices that don't because they made it part of our code for everybody to have GFI, ground fault interrupters.
Right. So that's a
Third.
So when somebody's sort of jerking away, actually you've got a lot less voltage there, so you don't jerk away so much when you grab the live wire. When
you die by electricity in Scotland, you die the hard way.
It's quite you get quite a jolt from it. I'm always touching the live wires. I live dangerously. in this very safe way. It's always, fascinated me why America has 110 volt and we have 240. Why America has 60. What the heck was that? Has 60 cycles on the mains, and why we have 50 on the mains. And I'm sure that's something to do with creating a disharmonic field. 10 hertz and 50 hertz and 60 hertz. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, also it has to do with the distance of the wires. So, America is a lot bigger. When they were building it, they had to do it cheap, and they needed to get the consistency, and the type of technology they had then was something that could put out a higher load, that could foresee their creation into it, even though the system was already reached its peak because they left it on poles instead of sticking it underground. So it was meant to be shortchanged, that system.
All right, so they were just being cheap rather than consciously creating a 10 hertz difference between the two countries.
Right. Just being cheap.
Just the cock-up factor.
Exactly.
There is no conspiracy.
They're just being cheap.
It's just
Sometimes
the cock-up.
that is the conspiracy. They're being cheap.
Yeah. Where can they get the best price for what they want? And that's this is one of the things that's almost like a signature, is that there is this kind of Keystone Cops energy about these so-called powers that be. They try to give this kind of impression of being really smooth, but there's a lot of mistakes that go on because stuff happens in this world.
Mm-hmm. Here's an example of one of their mistakes. All right, what was the big invention of the 1800s?
1800s. That must have been electricity.
The train.
Oh, right. The train. Really?
The train.
Didn't have trains.
The train. I believe 1816. Electricity wasn't you didn't have Morse code until the 1830s or 1840s. It might have even been the 50s. Train. The train was a technology that was only meant to be used underground in some of the new bases that they were building in Bavaria, and they wanted a system and a way to transfer the new coal settlements that they had found there. And somebody in the Bavarian Illuminati sold it to the technology unbeknownst to his grandmasters to some other people, and they started building trains. And since they weren't highly communicative like the way they were then, people all of a sudden started developing trains all over the world, and they couldn't do anything to stop it.
So it was like an idea that spread itself out through the morphological field.
Yep.
Yeah. So trains take us all, incredible use of iron and aluminium to transport the electricity across the world. So there's, an aluminium, it's like, you can get the stuff out, but it appears cheap, but it's very expensive in terms of the pollution that it makes and the energy that it takes to deal with it.
Right.
And of course, it, sort of rots our brain. Will we be able to, heavy metals is a big problem. Will we be able to have access to solutions that may can very in a short term help the damage to grow back and to detoxify?
Yeah, there'll be all sorts of things that come to help cleanse the earth, because after the event, people will be asked to step up in service, and those people will have technology that is one level a psychic technology, and then another level it's a physical technology you use, and that is it's like an energetic grass cutter. That's the best way I'll describe it. You use this thing, you'll control it with your mind, you'll send it to an area, and through it your mind will sense the types of pollutive areas, and you'll begin to draw out the pollution's co-creative energy that caused its event in the first place. And then as it loses that, the actual chemical interaction there will begin to be, example, in oil pollution, stuff will be given that will eat the oil rapidly as its energy is being removed, and then it'll be returned as a nutrient to the oil, and it'll start composting again. And let's say curing the oceans, they'll make these really big energetic crystalline filters. Imagine a river that's several miles long and a mile wide, and inside this river are thousands and millions of other crystals. And then the high volume of ocean water is pumped into the reservoir and then through the over top of these crystals. And the more people that come and visit this crystal river, like sit by it, have food by it, the more pollution it will clean out of the water of the ocean. And there'll be dozens of these spread around the world.
That's fantastic. That's a lovely vision. Was it you, but very early on, it may have been Jack, he was talking about a table that has water that runs through it across crystals?
That was me.
That was you.
My first show I did it.
Yeah. So, can you talk a bit more about that? That's a beautiful idea.
That was for taking care of prisoners of war that were left over from the Draco-Reptilian side when it ended in 2004 to 2006. I was in a galactic healer's mind that I was asked to figure out a way to help these people back out of the polarity and return to the neutral energies. And it was connecting into their meridians and energy bodies when they're in a relaxed period. And it was designing a bed that's made out of quartz crystal, and inside it are tubes, and these tubes run like a radiator. So water goes in one end and comes out the other end, and the person sleeps on top of that bed. So there's a interaction of crystal and water, close to the person's dreaming body. The water transports away polarity and allows the body to return to neutrality, which then gives the mind a chance to neutrality, and it gives a chance for the spirit to return to its original incarnation rules of the neutrality. So as you go through the grand trireme of neutrality, more and more of that polarity is released into the water. The water goes through a filtration system that goes to an outside area that is a leach bed. There'll be a bunch of stones and other organisms there that the water goes in. It's spread out. So that polarity is spread through the leach bed. And then the water in that leach bed is pumped to the next layer where it waters plants that the person is growing, that is using to harvest his own food. So his energy returns into that of nature, and then they go and till the land and bring that food in, consume it, and go through an additional releasing process until they've reached a level of non-polarity that their vibration is back to a growing state instead of a descending state.
So that's a lovely, like an energetic hydroponic kind of thing that you feed the plants that you eat with your own essence, and through that the essence is purified.
Correct.
You end up eating yourself. That's interesting, isn't it? And I suppose in a way that's what we all want to do, because
it's just a bigger digestion process.
Very interesting.
On a little bigger of a scale.
So that sounds like this is the crystal bed, okay? It sounds like I imagine myself laying on this thing, and it feels like I'm getting a shower from the inside. I hope the water is warm. Is it warmed or cool? Because it sounds like, if it's made of stone and crystal and water going through it, it's going to be it's going to take your heat away, isn't it?
Oh, it's warm. It's quite warm. And there is a memory foam mattress, but these are very thin. The technology that was there, they're able to make very comforting things that are very thin. So you lay down on it, and it's as tighter, as loose as you need it to be, like a memory foam, but a much more advanced version. And then the water is warm, and it goes through the crystal. And as I said, it's a radiating pattern there. But there's also circles, squares, and spirals inside it, so it's like going through geometric shapes, but on a microtubular level.
Yeah, so there are forms that are being dynamically generated through the water form. Yeah.
Correct.
Very nice idea. And have you seen them build? Have they shown you?
Oh yeah, they've seen me build. They've been in use for 2 years now.
And, this sounds like, a cure for PTSD. Is that really what it's like a deep PTSD, cure?
Well, these are prisoners of war. Mostly they've been through domination and control and chemical abuse and spiritual incarnation changes that are very polarizing. So, they're one step away from being hardcore. You have to return me to neutral, to source, or you get a second chance to work out your vibration. Like you not being feral anymore. It's like being feral versus not feral. The best way to describe it.
All right. Well, that's interesting because just as I'm leaving the house, the kitten that we had, who never really got a name. She had several names. But she was more or less feral when she arrived and really didn't like people, and has now just about gotten up to being able to jump onto, Nick's lap as he's sitting, at dinner. And previously she would run from any human, and any human would arrive, she'd just run away. And hide. took us 3 days to get them out from behind the sink. It was just the poor little. They seemed absolutely terrified, and so it's good that she's kind of warm to us. It's taken about a year though.
Does she go outside at all?
Oh yeah, she goes outside and she does the regular cat things, like killing and maiming and torturing and throwing things around, so she is a wild creature. But she's gaining a small sense of domestication, or of at least integrating with these weird two legs that seem to be sharing her space and giving her food.
My cat was very similar. When he came here, he was a beast. He was wild. And, he still rarely jumps up on your lap, but he'll come and sleep in my bed. That's like his only time he lets down his guard.
Yeah. Yeah.
He still made kills and murders. He still had a couple 4 kill, 5 kill days.
Yeah. Well, people think, cats are really cute because they got really nice hair. Well, just because you should see a cat. You look at a cat when it's wet. It's not a pretty creature. Those bald cats, they're not very nice looking. It's the hair that does it, right? So this tells you something. Just because something's got nice hair doesn't mean it's very good. And vice versa. If you're having a bad hair day or a bad hair lifetime, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. Hair ain't where it's at.
A bad hair lifetime. Wow, that's not like Albert Einstein.
Yeah, well, like me, So yeah, like Albert Einstein. Apparently, he didn't like. He discovered that his toe would go through socks, so he stopped wearing socks. And, he was, he was a real slob. I can relate to that. Yeah. So, this has been a very interesting show, Andrew, and thank you for delving into the records. I mean, basically you're talking, straight from the Akashic records when I'm querying you, aren't I? Aren't you? Yeah. And so, we could easily go on excursions through that, because it's like, you never knew this beforehand. Before you came on this show, you didn't know a lot of the stuff that you've just been saying.
Correct.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've dreamed some of this stuff.
Oh yeah. Did you dream this show?
This particular show.
Uh-huh. But some of them?
About a dozen of them.
Wow. That's great. So, I'd like to personally thank Dave for producing this show, and for all the other shows that he produces on Wolf Spirit Radio. Sometimes it's a panic, sometimes it's a pleasure, and it's a really great thing that we're doing here. I think bringing this information out to the world is going to certainly help, because we need to know. We don't need to believe anymore. We need to know. And when Andrew talks about these things, you hear them, you feel them resonating in your heart. And, it's like, yes, of course that's the way it is. Of course, that just makes sense. So, another expression of the soul. Thank you very much, Andrew.
You're welcome. Do you want to tell
Dave,
everybody what your other shows are on if somebody listens to this in the archives?
Oh yeah. Good idea. My website, my first show is called Ever Beyond, which is on a Sunday, in the afternoon in America, in the evening in Britain, and in the morning in Australia and the Far East. It's an esoteric show, and I speak to many interesting guests from afar afield, as Glastonbury, England, Bali, and Texas, and Colorado, and all these places. And I hope soon to have some more exciting and special guests. And that's on Sunday, and that's kind of my show base. And this is on Wolf Spirit Radio, which is a listener-supported radio. If you put a donation in, you'll keep the show running, and you'll keep Dave happy and not stressed, and having a wonderful time meeting all these people online, and having wonderful conversations. My website is www.everbeyond.info, and I'm also available for private readings and crystal devices, if anybody wants one of these things. That's all on the show. And yes, and then I also do a show on Tuesday on Revolution Radio at 12 PST, 8 PM UK time, which is a little more, I call it like my activist sort of side, which is like well, because it's on Revolution Radio, it's a bit more militant. Anyway, and then there's this show, which I co-host with Andrew Barsis. It's part of an ongoing conversation between us and all the people that seem to be drawn towards talking with us. Some very high minds. It's been very interesting so far. Andrew, do you have a website that you feed?
Not yet. I'll have a website up in the next week or two here. I'm rapidly trying to figure out all of the things that I have to do because I've expanded so fast. I'm also here on Wolf Spirit Radio on Tuesdays with JP, 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific. Wednesdays, 1 to 3 Pacific is my show, A Psychic's Tale. And it's like a psychic reading show, and it ventures into all sorts of other areas. I do lots of interviews there too. I'm also on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. and it's 10 a.m. to noon, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then on Thursdays I co-host or guest host with Michael McCracken on Through the Eyes of Equity here on Wolf Spirit Radio.
Superb. Dave.
And don't forget about Friday night.
Oh yeah, and Friday night.
Well, I have to say, Friday night in my house is going to be jam night. We're going to be doing an open jam session.
We'll make sure you record it.
Well, this is the thing. I'm wondering sometimes if we could even do a link up and.
Oh, you betcha! I'll I'll tell Andrew to go be quiet while I got to listen to music.
If you want to go live, JP, definitely.
It might be difficult to arrange because most people, don't want to make it into a performance because it's just like pleasure, which there's no expectation, which makes more room for creativity. But you never know.
Don't tell them you're recording it.
Or you don't tell them you're being broadcast on the internet.
That's true.
So you're live.
Yeah. They might be a little suspicious when every time I kind of go into the concert. Okay, welcome to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Oh, I'll do that for you. Andrew and I'll take turns.
Yep. Yeah. We'll do JP's voiceovers.
If you can't have fun doing internet radio, you shouldn't be into it.
Actually, maybe I should get my own stream, or maybe use live stream or something like that and broadcast video. I'm going to see if I can do it to broadcast a video signal with the audio and have webcams. That's something for the future anyway. And at least have a kind of studio where people can do a live broadcast from my very living room in the middle of the country, in the middle of nowhere, at the north of Scotland, on the tiny point at the top of the tiny island, in this tiny little blue-green sphere, in this enormous 3D galaxy, which is even bigger in the 5D, which makes things feel even more.
Well, make sure you get someone to come in and play the bagpipes and drums.
Oh, lovely. No. Well, maybe I do know that actually very close to here there is a man who has a Romanian bagpipe, which I have to say is very, very obviously a small baby goat. It's basically they took a goat, they kind of hollowed it out, and tied up the legs and stuck a pipe in the neck. That's really what it is. And you kind of hold it in, under your arm. And you can see that it's 4 little legs just tied up. It's a very kind of rustic kind of, musical instrument, I have to say. And we have this guy around who lives very close to here now where I've just moved in. Who plays it. So maybe Rory will come over and we'll do a bit of him. I mean, he's a world-class player. He's a really, he appears on broadcasts all over the world, but, he just lives close and he can play any wind instrument. He can make work, including these weird old things. He plays the Irish, bagpipes as well, the Julian pipes, which I find they, are a lot more, melodic to listen to.
They're almost hypnotic at times.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I do love it, and the voice music of the Celts is brilliant. Anyway, thank you very much for hosting this, Dave. This has been another Soul Expressions with Andrew Bartzis and JP.